This program is supported by Northern Cement Max Plus, Supreme at Max Pro Northern Cement, Ahon, Bangon, Sulong, and SMC Global Power.
Hello, I'm Alma Angeles and you're watching Eagle News International. On tonight's headlines. At least 37 people die when an overcrowded night ferry catches fire in Bangladesh as terrified passengers leap overboard to escape the blaze. A former U.S. police officer is found guilty of manslaughter after she shot dead a young African-American man, claiming she mistook her gun for her taser during a traffic stop.
Trying to keep him from driving.
South Korea's ex-president Park Geun-hye received a pardon today, cutting short a jail term of more than 20 years for corruption, with her successor saying he granted it in the interest of national unity. Presented as the successor of the Hubble Telescope launched in 1990, the James Webb Telescope is eagerly awaited by astronomers and astrophysicists around the world. It's scheduled to reach space in late December. First in our news, at least 37 people died when an overcrowded night ferry caught fire in Bangladesh today, according to police, as terrified passengers leaped overboard to escape the blaze. Take a look.
পর্দা লাগানো ছিল বাষ্পের সমস্ত ধোঁয়া আটকে গেছে এই দুবার তাপের সঙ্গে জ্বলছে গেছে
আমরা বাড়িতে যাচ্ছি বুঝছেন আমার যে বাচ্চাটা না ওটা 6 মাস বেশি বয়স না বুঝছেন ওই লোকটারে বলছি উনি কোলে নিয়ে ঘুরছে বুঝছেন যদি একটু কাইলে পারেন আমার
The latest maritime tragedy to hit the impoverished low-lying nation happened in the early hours in a river near Jakko-Kathi, 250 kilometers south of Dhaka. The blaze was believed to have originated in the engine room and ripped through the ferry, according to authorities. Despite having an official capacity of 310, the vessel was carrying at least 500, many of who were returning home from the capital. Witnesses said the fire originated at around 3 a.m. or started at around 3 a.m. and quickly spread. The accident was the latest in a string of similar incidents in the Delta country crisscrossed by rivers. Experts in the South Asian nation of 170 million people blame poor maintenance, lax safety standards at shipyards, and overcrowding. In August, at least 21 people were killed when a boat packed with passengers and a sand-laden cargo ship collided. In April and May, 54 people were killed in 2 separate accidents. In June last year, a ferry sank in Dhaka after it was hit from behind by another ferry, killing at least 32 people. And in February 2015, at least 78 people died when an overcrowded ship collided with a cargo vessel. In other news, a former U.S. police officer was found guilty of manslaughter after she shot dead a young African-American man, claiming she mistook her gun for her taser during a traffic stop. Kim Potter had pleaded not guilty and claimed the shooting was an accident, saying she mistakenly grabbed her firearm instead of her taser stun gun. In an emotional testimony, she had described how what was meant to be a routine traffic stop became chaotic. Take a look.
We were trying to keep him from driving away. It just went chaotic. And then I remember yelling, "Taser, taser, taser," and nothing happened. And then he told me I shot him.
Firearm in your right hand, correct?
Yes.
And you are pointing it directly at Mr. Wright, correct?
We have a break. My client is...
Okay. Miss Potter, do you need to break? Okay.
Focused on what you had done, because you had just killed somebody. Right?
I'm sorry it happened. I'm so sorry.
Ms. Potter, from your reaction today, and from your reaction on your video, you didn't plan to use deadly force that day, did you?
No.
You didn't want to use deadly force, did you?
That's irrelevant. If she planned it or wanted it, it's a constructive fact.
The objection is overruled.
No.
Because you knew that deadly force was unreasonable and unwarranted in those circumstances.
I didn't want to hurt anybody.
In the matter of State of Minnesota versus Kimberly Potter, court file number 27 CR 217490, we, the jury, on the charge of manslaughter in the first degree while committing a misdemeanor on or about April 11, 2021, in Hennepin County, State of Minnesota, find the defendant guilty.
Now, Kim Potter, 49 years old, was convicted of the first and second degree manslaughter of Dante Wright, a 20-year-old father in Brooklyn Center, a suburb of Minneapolis, Minnesota, in April. Potter now faces a maximum of 15 years in prison on the first charge and 10 years on the second, with the sentencing expected to take place in February. On Sunday, April 11, 2021, the white policewoman was patrolling with a colleague who decided to look up the driver of a Buick that had committed a minor traffic violation. After realizing that the driver was the subject of an arrest warrant, the police officers decided to arrest him. Wright, who was unarmed, resisted being handcuffed and restarted his car to try to flee. Potter then drew what she said she thought was her taser. On a body cam recording of the scene, Potter can be heard shouting "taser" several times before shooting with her gun and fatally wounding Wright. Outside the court, supporters could celebrated, danced, and played music after the verdict was announced. Dante Wright's mother, meanwhile, Katie Wright, told a press conference that she felt emotions, every single emotion that you can imagine, as the verdict was read. Take a look.
The moment that we heard guilty on the manslaughter 1, emotions, every single emotion that you could imagine just running through your body at that moment. I kind of let out a yelp because it was built up in the anticipation of what was to come while we were waiting for the last few days.
Dante's parents, Katie and Orby Wright, also thanked the community for their solidarity and commitment to justice since their son was killed during a traffic stop in April. Potter and her defense attorneys previously said that she intended to grab her taser instead of her gun when she shot Wright. The incident came during the trial of white policeman Derek Chauvin, who had asphyxiated George Floyd, who was black, in Minneapolis in May 2020 by kneeling on his neck for some 9 minutes. Floyd's death sparked nationwide protests against racism and police brutality. Potter now faces a maximum of 15 years in prison on the first charge and 10 years on the second, with the sentencing expected to take place in February. In other news, President Duterte said he would spend the holidays working to ensure that communities battered by Typhoon Odette would receive their much-needed assistance. The president said the government would work overtime, noting that it is the least he could do to help his fellow Filipinos at a time of crisis. Take a look.
Pero magdating yan within 3 days na dito na yan. Sabi ko mag-overtime kami, ang gobyerno, hindi mag-serap. Sabi ko magsakripisyo na muna tayo. Total, ibigay natin sa tao. Yun lang naman ang maibigay ko sa personal. So tatrabaho kami, pati ang military, pati ang pulis. Stay put sila at para namang wala masyadong gulo, ang pulis ang depende kung kulang, wala, military, pulis ang pagpatakbo ng linya. Hindi wala akong kumpiyansa sa tao. Para lang kunting disiplina at mabigyan lahat.
The president also assured that the military and police would also be deployed to maintain peace and order in typhoon-hit provinces amid reports of looting caused by lack of food and other basic supplies. Meanwhile, the United Nations kicked off a campaign today to raise $107.2 million in aid for victims of Typhoon Rai, which ravaged the Philippines last week. The organization said the money will be targeted towards 530,000 people in the worst affected areas who are in dire need of drinking water, sanitation facilities, food, and emergency shelter. Take a look.
We can conclude as a result of this mission that Rai has been devastating. What I saw in my visit is roads covered with debris, electricity networks down, hundreds of houses without roof, and of course the impact of people. You can see people along the border of the road between Butuan and Surigao desperately asking for help. And they are asking for emergency shelter, drinking water, food, and for their livelihoods. Contrary to the predictions, Rai intensified from a tropical storm to a super typhoon within hours. And I think that this is a lessons learned in terms of the impact of climate change. So we were, all of us, surprised. This typhoon took place in an expected area. It's not the traditional area where we have the trajectory of the typhoons. And the way that evolved in some way affected our anticipatory actions. As today we have 3 million of people in need of assistance. Amongst them, we have around 1 million children. In terms of casualties, so far, based on data provided by the government, we have at least 177 people injured, 275. We are confronted to a situation where we cannot access the islands, we cannot communicate with the local authorities. So we are not surprised that perhaps in the coming days, the figures that we are using, they will change and they will increase. We are very much concerned about the interruption of vaccination campaign in this area. And this was shared by the Department of Health in situ, in the sense that, just an example, the fact that there is no electricity, this is affecting the cold chains for the protection of vaccines. And at the same time, the labs and in the evacuation center is quite difficult to ensure the respect of social distancing, the use of masks.
Typhoon Rai, known as Typhoon Odette in the Philippines, made landfall on the 16th of December with 195 kilometers an hour, sustained winds and gusts of up to 270 kilometers per hour in the Philippines' central island provinces. And as mentioned, on December 16 this year, Typhoon Odette ripped through the Philippines, leaving many people's homes destroyed and lives ruined. Through the leadership of the Executive Minister, Brother Eduardo Manalo, the Iglesia Ni Cristo quickly sent much-needed aid to the people of the affected regions. Let's take a look.
pagkuha namin ng mga prime commodities, pagkain, tubig, kailangan namin gumamit ng service kasi napakalayo yung kukunan namin ng tubig.
Launa pa ni Dinis Kadlaw, naglinya na sila para lang makakuha o gasolina.
Pagkahirap dito, walang tubig. Sobrang init talaga. Mahirap.
Nakikita natin, napakahirap ng kalagayan ng mga kababayan. Kaagad pinapuntahan ng kapatid na Eduardo Manalo ang mga sites na tinamaan itong nakaraang bagyo. Paparating pa lamang, hindi pa natin alam kung anong epekto nito at nawalan ng komunikasyon halos lahat. Nang dumarating na ang mga reports at nakita natin na yung lawak ng pinsala, nagpa-set up kaagad ang kapatid na Eduardo Manalo ng maraming sites upang makapag-repack at makapagbigay kaagad ng lingap sa mga taong napinsala nitong bagyo. Ngayon po, nandito tayo sa Mandaue, Cebu. Meron po tayong site sa Bacolod, sa Agusan, at may site din po sa Palawan kung saan tumama ng malakas at malaki po ang naging pinsala.
First time ko po nakaranas, ganun kalakas po na bagyo. Dahil po nasa krisis kami ay nagkakaisa pa rin po kami. Para po makatulong sa mga nangangailangan po dahil alam din namin po gaano kahirap po ngayon.
Masayang-masaya po dahil nagkakita-kita ang mga kapatid galing sa ibang lokal.
Pasalamat lang ko nga way kinabuhi na mong anak alas. Singgit ko sa Diyos, amahang makagagahom, ayaw yung taon may pasagdi imong mga anak. Luwas ami aning trahedya, nga midas sa amo ang kahimtang. Aron patuloy pa kong mag-alagad hanggang may buhay pa ko.
Hindi lamang goodie bags ang ipagkakaloob ng ating tagapamahalang pangkalahatan, kundi mayroon ding financial assistance sa mga kapatid at mga kababayan natin na nawalan ng bahay at ikabubuhay.
Ito po yung malaking tulong sa pagpapagawa po ng aming bahay. Maraming salamat po sa ating Panginoong Diyos.
Ako, magpasalamat kong dako ka Brad Eduardo Manalo nga itabangan mi sa kalisod karon nga doon namin magamit nga ikatap-tap sa ako ang balay.
Malaking tulong yun sa bawat isa sa amin.
Hindi po titigil ang Iglesia ni Cristo sa pagtulong, paglingap, pati po ang ikabubuhay ng ating mga kapatid. Kaya tayo naglilingap ay dahil sa utos ng ating Panginoong Diyos at ang ating Panginoong Jesucristo na mahalin at tumulong sa ating kapwa-tao. Yan po ang aming patayan para po sa lingap sa mamamayan.
Kasama mo upang ang kahirapan ay labanan. Nariyan ang lingap, ang lingap, ang lingap sa mamamayan.
And the news continues here on Eagle News. We'll be right back.
Mula noon hanggang ngayon, gabay natin ang MTRCB ratings sa matalino at responsableng panonood. Sa tamang pagsunod sa MTRCB ratings, ginagawa nating ligtas at makabuluhan ang panonood ng bawat miyembro ng pamilyang Pilipino. Lumipas man ang panahon, hanggang may pamilyang Pilipino, andyan ang MTRCB.
Welcome back. Japan said it will not send government representatives to February's Beijing Olympics as it called on China to respect human rights and the rule of law. Government spokesman Hirokazu Matsuno did not describe the move as a diplomatic boycott already announced by the U.S. and others, but said there were no plans for officials to attend the games. Take a look.
我が国としては国際社会における普遍的価値である自由、基本的人権の尊重、法の支配が中国においても保障されることが重要であると考えており、こうした我が国の立場についてはさまざまなレベルで中国側に直接働きかけているところであります。東京大会が示したように、オリンピック・パラリンピックは世界に勇気を与える平和スポーツの祭典であります。北京冬季大会への日本政府の対応については、これらの点をも総合的に勘案して自ら判断を行ったものであります。
Seiko Hashimoto, who led the organizing committee for the Tokyo Games, and Japanese Olympic Committee President Yasuhiro Yamashita will still attend the event in Beijing. Japanese Paralympic Committee Chief Kazuyuki Mori will also travel to China for the Games. The U.S., Britain, Australia, and Canada this month announced diplomatic boycotts of the Games over what they consider to be widespread rights abuses by China, including the Muslim Uyghur minority, but athletes will still attend. Although Japan enjoys close ties with the U.S., there are also practical considerations at play as China is Tokyo's largest global trading partner. China has slammed countries which boycotted the Games, saying they would pay a price for their wrong moves. All right, we'll take a short break and we'll be right back.
Ahon, bangon, sulong. Ahon, bangon, sulong.
Pangarap ng bawat Pilipino. Hangarin ng Northern Cement.
Ahon, bangon, sulong.
Pinalaki ng Northern Cement ang kapasidad ng kanilang planta para steady ang supply ng sementong tigasin. Northern Cement Max Plus, Supreme at Max Pro.
Ahon, bangon, sulong.
Alam namin ang iyong pagsisikap. Dama namin ang iyong mga sakripisyo. Kita namin ang pagharap mo sa bawat pagsubok. Kaya sa kabila ng mga hamon ng buhay, nandito kami para umalalay. Kasi katulad mo, gusto rin namin ang magandang bukas para sa kanya. Hatid namin ang dekalidad na edukasyon at makabagong pasilidad sa abot kayang halaga. Kaya huwag ka na mangamba. Sasamahan ka namin tuparin ang mga pangarap niya. Maaasahan mong sulit dito ang mga pinagsikapan mo. Sa aming mga makabagong pasilidad at sistema ng edukasyon. Mailalabas natin ang aking talino at mga kakayahan niya. Kahit sa munting halaga, makakasiguro ka na makakasabay siya sa mabilis na pag-ikot ng mundo. Sa New Era, karamay mo kami sa bawat hamon. Kaagapay mo kami sa bawat hakbang. Kasama mo kami sa bawat ngiti at tagumpay.
This week, meron akong makakasama dito sa aking kusina. Ako'y napaka-honor. Honor ko po to. Nag-iisa lang po, Mr. Rommel Padilla. Paul! Welcome, welcome. Kailangan paligayahin mo ko at sabihin mo masarap yung niluto ko.
Huwag mo akong hinahamon ng mga ganyang mental.
Ano?
Ang init.
Goodbye 2021! Hello 2022! Sa loob ng isang taon, tayo'y nakapagtanim ng kaalaman, nakapagluto ng mga plano, at nakalikha ng mga inobatibo at pagkakakitaang alternatibo. Napakarami nating pinagdaanan, pinagsamahan at natutunan. Hindi lang sa usapang hanap buhay, kundi iba't ibang kwento ng tagumpay. Sama-sama nating balikan ang mga kabuhayan na nagbigay sa atin ng kaaliwan, inspirasyon at kaalaman. Ako po si Robin Padilla at ito po ang Unlad, Kagapay sa Hanap Buhay.
Sa hanap buhay.
Ako pala si Michi Uy at abangan niyo po ako bilang guest performer sa Letters in Music ngayong darating na Sabado, December 25, 1 to 2 p.m. Siyempre, dito lamang sa Net 25. See ya!
Alamin ang mga dapat ninyong tandaan sa gitna ng mga hindi inaasahang sakuna sa tulong ng Responde at ng Philippine Red Cross. Ang mga kagawad ng MMDA at Responde magsasanib puwersa sa pag-aksyon. Mga nabigong tumanggap ng kanilang benepisyo at pensyon sa Social Security System bibigyan ng pag-asa ng Responde. Sabado, alas 6 hanggang alas 7 ng gabi. Ito ang Responde, mata ng mamamayan.
Welcome back. Russian President Vladimir Putin criticized American diplomats' decision to boycott the upcoming Winter Olympics in Beijing, saying that this decision is an attempt to hold back the competitors' development. Take a look.
Чем это вызвано? Значит, дипломатический, политический бойкот.
Китая с попытками сдержать развитие Китайской Народной Республики. Никаких других побудительных мотивов нет и быть не может. Нет никакой другой причины, поверьте мне. Дело не в фамилии руководителя страны, дело не в каких-то текущих вопросах, проблемах. Дело только в одном. Попытка сдержать развитие, не дать возможности поднять голову возможным конкурентам. Но это ошибочная политика. Так же, как ошибкой является попытка использовать в данном случае спорт для решения каких-то сиюминутных политических вопросов. Им не сдержать развитие Китая. Они должны осознать это в конце концов. Не сдержать.
U.S. President Joe Biden's administration announced that it will not send any U.S. diplomatic or official government representatives to the Games, kicking off in February, in a rebuke of China's human rights record. He said that it was positive, however, that participants were not impacted by the decision. The move drew fiery opposition from Beijing, which threatened unspecified countermeasures, saying the U.S. would pay the price for its wrongdoing. In other news, two Hong Kong universities on Friday removed the sculptures marking Beijing's 1989 Tiananmen Square democracy protesters as authorities steadily erased all remaining traces of the deadly event from the southern Chinese territory. The removals come a day after Hong Kong's oldest university took down a statue commemorating the bloody crackdown, sparking outcry by activists and dissident artists in the city and abroad. The removals took place on Christmas Eve when many students were on a break and away from campus. The U.S.-based artist Chen expressed regret and anger at the removal of his works, adding that the universities behaved illegally and unreasonably. But early Friday, the Chinese University of Hong Kong removed the Goddess of Democracy from its campus. The sculpture by Chen Wei-ming, a 6-meter replica of the giant statue that students erected in Tiananmen Square, was a symbol of Hong Kong's democracy movement. The U.S.-based artist Chen expressed regret at the removal, adding that the universities had behaved illegally. And Chen said the works were only on loan to the schools and that he would hire a lawyer to take legal action if the sculptures were damaged. The CUHK said it removed the unauthorized statue after an internal assessment, adding that the groups responsible for moving it to the campus in 2010 were no longer functional. Lingnan University said it had taken down its statue after having reviewed and assessed items on campus that may pose legal and safety risks to the university community. Meanwhile, President Vladimir Putin gave his annual address with tough words for Ukraine and NATO. And this comes as Russia has massed thousands of troops on the border with Ukraine. Take a look.
Хотел бы подчеркнуть, что в целом мы видим пока положительную реакцию. Значит, и американские партнеры нам говорят о том, что они готовы к началу этой дискуссии, этих переговоров в самом начале года в Женеве. Без всяких хитростей. Мы просто прямо поставили вопрос, что никакого движения НАТО на восток дальше быть не должно. Мяч на их стороне, они должны нам что-то ответить.
NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg branded Russia as the aggressor. Later Thursday, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken spoke with NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg to discuss their shared concern about Russia's military buildup on the borders of Ukraine, according to the State Department. The official stressed that the alliance remains ready for meaningful dialogue with Russia while standing united to defend and protect allies. The Kremlin has grown increasingly insistent that the West and NATO are encroaching dangerously close to Russia's borders. Moscow presented the West with sweeping security demands last week, saying NATO must not admit new members and barring the U.S. from establishing new bases in former Soviet countries. In other news, South Korea's ex-president Park Geun-hye received a pardon on Friday, cutting short a jail term of more than 20 years for corruption, with her successor saying he granted it in the interest of national unity. Park became South Korea's first woman president in 2013. But less than 4 years later, she was impeached and ousted after a graft scandal sparked huge street protests. The 69-year-old was serving a 20-year prison sentence for bribery and abuse of power, with another 2 years after that for election law violations. We must overcome the pain of the past and move forward into the new era, according to President Moon Jae-in, who was propelled into power in 2017 following public backlash against Park and her Conservative Party. President Moon said Park's deteriorating health after serving almost 5 years in jail was also a factor in the decision to pardon her. Park has been hospitalized several times this year, and she's currently receiving treatment at a facility in the capital, Seoul. The amnesty will take effect on December 31, according to the Justice Ministry. Park expressed her deep gratitude to President Moon Jae-in and the government authorities who decided to grant amnesty despite many difficulties. Special pardons like the one received by Park can only be granted by the president in South Korea. In other news, a Moscow court slapped Google with an unprecedented hefty fine today for repeatedly failing to remove illegal content as Russian authorities piled pressure on foreign tech giants. The U.S. firm was fined 7.2 billion rubles, or $98 million, according to the court's press service on Telegram. Russia has recently heaped fines on the world's biggest tech companies, accusing them of not moderating their content properly and interfering in the country's affairs. However, the fines that Meta or Facebook, Twitter, Google, and other foreign tech giants received stretch into the tens of millions of rubles and not billions. Interfax news agency reported that the fine was calculated as a percentage of Google's annual earnings. Meta, which has a hearing in court later today on the same charges, has also been threatened with a revenue-based fine. The COVID-19 positivity rate in the National Capital Region increased slightly over the past few days at 0.77 for the period of December 16 to the 22nd, according to Okta Research Group today. In its latest report, the group noted that the region's positivity rate was lowest at 0.62 for the period of December 12 to 18. This uptick in positivity rate may be dismissed as merely an effect of the holidays. On the other hand, this could also be the beginning of a change in the trend, according to Okta. However, it said a clear picture of the situation would not be seen until the first week of January next year due to increased testing over the holiday season. In a tweet, Okta fellow Dr. Guido David said the holiday uptick may be due to the increased number of social gatherings. The city government of Manila encouraged parents and guardians of children aged 5 to 11 years old to pre-register as early as now for the COVID vaccine. The vaccination for the youngest age group to be included in the country's rollout will initially be held in the city's 6 district hospitals, to be explained later on. Take a look.
Sa bakunahan sa 5 to 11 years old, ay kayo po'y iniimbitahan ko na magparehistro na ng inyong mga anak na 5 taon hanggang 11 taon sa ating Manila COVID-19 na vaccine.ph, no? Pakita mo nga yung website para meron silang guide, no? Ibig sabihin, mga kababayan, iparehistro na po natin yung ating mga anak. Kung kayo naman po ay bakunado na, punta lang kayo sa inyong account doon sa ating website, no? At i-enroll nyo lang yung inyong mga anak na 5 years old to 11 years old. Katulad ng ginawa ninyo sa ating mga anak na 11 years old to 17 years old para isang sistema na lamang. I-update namin kayo kung saan tayo muna magbabakuna, anong lugar at saan. Usually ho yan, pag sa umpisa, sa ospital po yan, 6 po ang ating ospital. So, dyan yan usually. After that, pupunta yan sa mga community, then pupunta ulit sa mga vaccination site natin. But we will update you for that. No? Ngayon, ay magparehistro na po kayo.
FDA Director General Eric Domingo said the Pfizer jab has a high efficacy rate of above 90%, while its adverse events are very mild as proven in clinical trials. As of 8 p.m. on Thursday, Manila has already deployed 3,006,071 COVID vaccine doses. Staying in the country, the Department of Health today logged 310 more coronavirus cases, bringing the nation's overall tally to 2,838,032. And this brought the total number of active infections to 9,321 today. In its COVID bulletin, the DOH said 227 new recoveries pushed the total recovery count to 2,777,661. Of the active cases, 3,295 are mild, 474 are asymptomatic, 375 are critical, 1,795 are severe, and 3,382 are moderate. The DOH said of the 310 reported cases today, 272 or 88% occurred within the recent 14 days, December 11 to 24. It added that the top regions with most cases in the recent 2 weeks were the National Capital Region with 106 or 39%, Calabarzon with 32 or 12%, and Region 3 with 22 or 8% of the country's new cases. The death toll has reached 51,050 with 69 new deaths. Meanwhile, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration authorized Merck's COVID pill for high-risk adults a day after green-lighting a similar but more effective drug by Pfizer amid a winter surge of cases driven by Omicron. While vaccines and boosters remain the foremost tools in the fight against the pandemic, experts have welcomed the addition of the new oral treatments which inhibit the virus' ability to replicate and should withstand variants. The pill developed by Merck, called Molnupiravir, is taken within 5 days of symptom onset and was shown in a trial of 1,400 participants to reduce COVID hospitalizations and deaths by 30% at-risk people. Pfizer's pill reduced the same outcomes by almost 90%, is authorized for people aged 12 and up, and has fewer overall safety concerns. The U.S. has paid $2.2 billion for 3.1 million courses of Merck's treatment and $5.3 billion for 10 million courses of Pfizer's. And France today recommended that adults receive a COVID-19 booster vaccination 3 months after their initial jabs, reducing the guideline of 5 months to better fight the Omicron variant. The recommendation was published by the country's HAS Health Authority, which advises the government in the fight against COVID. The HAS also recommended that the booster rollout be expanded to now include teenagers who are deemed to be at risk, days after France opened up the vaccination rollout to children aged 5 and over. It justified the cut to 3 months by citing studies showing that vaccines are 80% effective for 1 to 2 months against the non-serious symptomatic forms of the Omicron variant, but lose their effectiveness more quickly than with the previous variants. France on Thursday recorded 91,608 positive COVID cases, a record since the start of the pandemic, exceeding the previous high seen in November 2020. However, record numbers of tests are being carried out with 6.2 million in the past week. Unlike some European countries, President Emmanuel Macron has so far resisted imposing major new restrictions to battle the Omicron variant, hoping that the booster program will prevent the health system from being overwhelmed. Meanwhile, Canada set a new daily record of 20,699 COVID cases Thursday, bringing the cumulative total number to 1,945,754 cases with 30,131 deaths, according to CTV. And for the first time ever, Canada surpassed 20,000 new cases of COVID-19 since the coronavirus outbreak in February last year. The majority of the new cases are from those fully vaccinated. Among the new cases, Quebec reported 9,397 and Ontario confirmed 5,790, breaking a record for the highest number of new cases in the two provinces in a day. The country reported 10,667 new cases on Monday, then a record surpassing 10,000 cases in a single day. Canadian COVID cases have soared over the past few days due to the fast spread of the Omicron variant. Wednesday, 14,987 new cases were reported, with 11,692 Tuesday. And because of that, Ontario is announcing that it's accelerating its COVID booster shot rollout over fears around the Omicron variant. Joshua Santillana from our EBC Canada Bureau reports.
In response to the alarming spread of Omicron COVID-19 variants in Toronto, the city expands its COVID-19 vaccine third dose eligibility starting Monday, December 20, to include anyone 18 years of age and older who received their second dose of the COVID-19 vaccine at least 3 months ago. Toronto Public Health estimates that more than 1 million people in the city are now eligible for a booster dose. In just 1 week, the city's total monthly vaccination capacity has increased from 400,000 doses to more than 1.2 million doses as the city and its healthcare partners operate mass immunization and mobile clinics, working also with hospital partner clinics, local pharmacies, and doctors' offices. As of December 14, the weekly positivity rate of the new COVID-19 cases in Toronto jumped from 29.4 last November to 46.8 this month. Due to the expected high volume of Torontonians making their way to their vaccine appointments, the city encouraged people to take advantage of the Vaccine Equity Transportation Plan, offering transportation services. Mayor John Tory expresses his gratitude towards Team Toronto as they continue to help in vaccinating as many people as possible in the coming weeks. In Toronto, Joshua Santillana, Eagle News. We live in interesting times.
The Chinese Foreign Ministry said it strongly opposed US's ban on all imports from the Chinese region of Xinjiang. Take a look.
该案罔顾事实真相，恶意诋毁中国新疆人权状况，严重违反国际法和国际关系基本准则，粗暴干涉中国内政。中方对此强烈愤慨，坚决反对。涉疆事务纯属中国内政，中国政府和人民捍卫国家主权、安全和发展利益的决心坚定不移。我们奉劝美方立即纠正错误，停止利用涉疆问题散布谣言，干涉中国内政，遏制中国发展。中方将视形势发展，作出进一步反应。
President Joe Biden signed a law on Thursday virtually banning all imports from the Chinese region of Xinjiang in response to concerns over forced labor as U.S. companies find themselves caught in the diplomatic fray. The bill, which was approved by Congress last week, bans the import of all goods from the region unless companies offer verifiable proof that production did not involve forced labor. The Uyghur Forced Labor Prevention Act sets its sights on 3 products, in particular cotton, of which Xinjiang is one of the world's major producers, tomatoes, and polysilicon, a material used to produce solar panels. An estimated 20% of garments imported into the U.S. each year include some cotton from Xinjiang. Rights experts, witnesses, and the U.S. government say more than 1 million Uyghurs and other Turkic-speaking Muslims are incarcerated in camps in an effort to root out their Islamic cultural traditions and forcibly assimilate them into China's Han majority. Washington has described the campaign as genocide. In other news, German national carrier Lufthansa will cut its winter flight plan by around 10% as the spread of the Omicron variant fuels uncertainty about travel, according to Chief Executive Carsten Spohr. From the middle of January to February, we see a sharp drop-off in bookings, leading the airline group to cancel 33,000 flights, or about 10% of its flights this winter, according to Spohr in an interview with the Frankfurter Allgemeine Sonntag. To Gas, Europe's largest airline group, which includes Eurowings, Austrian, Swiss, and Brussels Airlines, was currently running about 60% of flights compared with the pre-pandemic year 2019, carrying roughly half the number of passengers, according to the CEO. Spohr said the number of cancellations would have been higher were the group not running 18,000 extra unnecessary flights just to secure our landing and takeoff rights. The airline industry has been battered since the beginning of the coronavirus pandemic, with countless flights grounded in 2020 as countries closed their borders. The European Airports Association, or ACI Europe, estimated that the number of passengers traveling through its members had dropped 20% since November 24, when the Omicron variant was first reported to the WHO. Germany has placed stricter limits on travelers coming from the United Kingdom and South Africa, among others, where the new variant has caused a surge in cases. And a new kind of chip shortage has hit Japanese supply chains, with McDonald's forced to ration fries in the country as COVID-19 and floods in Canada squeeze potato imports. McDonald's Japan said it will only sell small-sized French fries for a week from Friday to avoid shortages. Take a look.
ですね、大きなサイズ注文できないというところに関してはそこまで大きな懸念点はなかったんですけれども、ちょっと久しぶりに今日ポテトを食べたかったっていうところでは残念ですね。
小さい頃からマックのポテトが好きでお腹いっぱい食べたかったのでL サイズがないとすごく残念です。
まずなんでかなって思って、原因が分かったので、そういう事情だったら仕方ないことだなって、普通は M サイズが食べられる当たり前になっちゃってるんですけど、事情が事情なので仕方ないことだなと思いました。
いや別に問題はないかなという思いますけど、たくさん買えばねそれでいいだけなので、別に S だけが販売全部販売しないならね、ポテト好きな人は食べれないからかわいそうだけどね、 S は買えるんだから、最悪 S1 個で我慢しなさいってことですよね。
Due to large-scale flooding near the port of Vancouver and the global supply chain crunch caused by the pandemic, there are delays in the supply of potatoes. It said in a statement on Tuesday. The company said it has taken the measure to ensure that customers can still order fries, even though the stable procurement of resource materials is proving difficult. The restriction comes during the busy year-end period, with schools and offices beginning to close for the holidays. It will also be in place on December 25, commonly celebrated in Japan with a hearty serving of another U.S. fast food behemoth, Kentucky, which is heavily marketed around the festive period. Meanwhile, a pandemic-fueled global microchip shortage continues to plague auto giants, including Japan's Toyota, which has announced production cuts due to the crisis and supply chain issues in Southeast Asia. And NASA has released images of its James Webb Space Telescope. Take a look. The Webb Telescope, soon to become the most powerful ever to be launched into space after technical and weather delays, is set to take off today from the base in France's South American department. The Webb Telescope is expected to revolutionize the observation of the universe, and astronomers and astrophysicists have been looking forward to its deployment for decades. Next. And presented as the successor of the Hubble telescope, launched in 1990, the James Webb Telescope is eagerly awaited by astronomers and astrophysicists around the world, as it is scheduled to reach space in late December. Let's take a look.
The James
James Webb Space Telescope is due to lift off from French Guiana in an Ariane launcher. Designed by NASA, it'll be 100 times more powerful than its distinguished predecessor, Hubble. Webb, which weighs 6 tons, is so big it'll have to be folded up and packed into the Ariane rocket. The telescope will be placed into orbit around the Sun, 1.5 million kilometers from Earth, beyond the Moon. As it moves around the Sun, it'll stay in line with the Earth. There, the telescope will gradually unfold until it assumes its working configuration. 18 individual mirror segments made from beryllium and coated with gold will move into place. Webb observes faint infrared signals or light from distant objects. The infrared light can sometimes be felt as heat, so it's crucial that these signals are not polluted by other sources of heat like the sun. A sunshade the size of a tennis court keeps the mirrors cool at about minus 240 degrees Celsius. The large mirror is 6.5 meters in height, compared to 2.4 meters for Hubble. A secondary mirror concentrates the light into a beam the size of a dinner plate. The light travels back through a hole in the primary mirror before being directed to the instruments for analysis. Webb, named after former NASA head James Webb, will spend 5 to 10 years in space. Scientists hope the telescope, as it looks back in time over 13.5 billion years, will see the very first stars and galaxies that formed after the Big Bang. And, who knows, it may even detect another Earth.
And that's it for tonight's broadcast. Thank you for joining us. At the end of the day, there remains so much more to be grateful for. I'm Alma Angeles. We'll see you back tomorrow. Good night.
This program is supported by Northern Cement Max Plus, Supreme at Max Pro Northern Cement, Ahon, Bangon, Sulong, and SMC Global Power.